It's time for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome back to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. I have been selling real estate in this market for 20 years. I've sold about 1,500 properties in that amount of time, about $1 billion worth of real estate represented. So we have a real estate company. We have a property management company. I'm a personal investor of real estate, and I have a private money lending company. So I do a little bit of everything real estate related. And because of the amount of time I spend analyzing and interpreting this market, not just looking for opportunities for myself, but looking to, strategically place my clients in a position where they win in their transaction. This is what allows me to be on this show with you guys and help you understand the market as I see it and the trends that are evolving over time. We're going to talk a lot about that this morning and just where I think the market is headed. But before that, we're gonna have a little fun. I want to kick off things today with just something a little fun, a Charleston real estate myth busting session, if you will. There are so many sayings and assumptions and half-truths that are kind of floating around out there about what this market looks like and what it entails and what people are experiencing on a daily basis as they're buying and selling properties. And so we're going to clear a few things up this morning and help you guys understand really what's happening in this market and maybe some situations that you find yourself in and how that might not be exactly what's going on. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the market in general, where I see things heading into 2026. This will not be the official forecast show that I do. We'll do that next week or the week after. I know everybody always looks forward to that. And if you look historically at my projections, which maybe is a bit of a qualifier for continuing to remain on this program, I've been pretty much nail on the head with regard to all of my projections, which you can view if you just go to YouTube. We've got about 1,000 videos on YouTube, by the way, because I video myself while I'm here in the studio and talking with y'all. We put that to video and put it on YouTube. So if you're ever curious to put a face with the voice, you can search the Brian Beatty team on YouTube and check out all our videos there. You can also listen to it in podcast form, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all that great stuff. Or, of course, the old school methods of contact are just as good, if not better, which is to call or text me. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. And our website is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So let's get into some of these myths that I'm going to have a fun time kind of busting wide open. And the first one is that all the good deals or all the best deals are gone instantly, right? So during the frenzy of the COVID market, and pandemic, that sometimes felt true. In fact, most of the time it felt true. You had, especially here locally, you had an incredible amount of people. The floodgates opened and everyone with a job basically got sent home and said, hey, we're shutting things down. You're going to work from home now. You are a remote work employee. Well, then it, of course, got to the point where if they're a remote work employee, they can live anywhere. And guess where they chose? Charleston, South Carolina, right? Among a few other places, but we were pretty darn close to the top number one on that list for a long time. And we had an incredible amount of people move here. And so as a result of that, demand shot through the roof. We were in a market where we had extremely low inventory at the time. There was hardly anything for sale. You had a bunch of people moving here. You had interest rates at 3%. You had prices that at that point in time were affordable. It was the perfect situation for prices to skyrocket. And as a result, if you were not Johnny on the spot, you missed out. And it wasn't even necessarily you were getting a good deal, right? That's the important part. It's not that you were getting a great deal with the seller. You were getting a great deal with the bank. You were winning against the bank because you were locking in on a sub 3% mortgage for the next 30 years that you're not going to be able to replicate anytime soon, unless there is some incredibly horrific economic event We're not seeing anything close to that any point in time soon, right? So let's just put that out of our minds. You can still get it, by the way. You can still manipulate the interest rate through negotiation to get a lower interest rate. But the base rate, we're not seeing twos, again, anytime soon. I can't think of a single reason why we would, but I haven't put that much thought into it because it's just a bit of a ridiculous notion at this point. But in today's market, right, it's not so true. Homes are still selling quickly. You know, a third of the properties there's, and I'll get into these stats a little bit more. It'll make more sense. But you basically have, for every 100 homes that hit the market, 27 of them do not sell, which might be a surprising statistic in and of itself. But 1 in 4 homes are being taken off the market. They're not selling. The sellers are deciding not to sell. The agents are getting fired. The agreements are expiring because they've been on the market for too long. Fill in the blank reason why, but they're coming off the market. Now, plenty of them go back on the market. Several of them are staying off the market because the sellers just can't get what they want, and they feel like it's an exercise in futility. And they're right, for the most part. So you've got these homes that are sitting on the market for longer. Yes, you still have plenty of them that are selling, but 1 in 4 of them aren't selling. So then you take the other 73 that did sell, and basically half of them had to reduce their price in order to sell. Half of them did not, right? So you've got about 30% or 30 of every 100 listings that are still selling at full price in a week or less. And among those that sell for full price, a third of them are selling for over their asking price. So you've got very interesting and confusing signals as it relates to what's actually happening in the real estate market right now locally. But not all the best deals are gone instantly. Buyers have more time to think. We're in more of a stable market right now, which is not a bad thing. People have a moment to analyze and interpret and come to a decision without feeling rushed on a, hundreds of thousands of dollar transaction or multi-million-dollar transaction. There's just a little breathing room. And there are plenty of solid opportunities that stay on the market long enough for those thoughtful decisions rather than knee-jerk reactions. You also see, especially this time of year, a lot of, what I have kind of called, and it's probably not PC, but it is what it is, the leftovers, right? You have all the folks that listed in the spring and the summer and the fall. Some of them have been on the market for years. We have plenty of listings in any market that have been on the market for years, on and off, right? Now is a really, really, really good time to approach those sellers to see if they're willing to make a deal. If they're still on the market, there's a good reason why. So not all the best deals are gone instantly. Of course, it helps to be, in a position where you can react immediately. That's what I think partnering with a really good real estate agent will do for you, right? They're going to look at the market just like you. And if they see a really good opportunity, I would want my real estate agent, if they saw a really good opportunity, to call me up and be like, hey, did you see that house that just hit the market at 123 Main Street? Looks like it's exactly what you're looking for, and it's priced well and blah, 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 blah. Not to put the buyer in a pressure cooker situation and force them into some sort of quick response. I need to let them know that, like, hey, what they're looking for just hit the market, and if they have the ability, let's go see it quickly and try and make a quick decision on it so that we don't unnecessarily languish and put ourselves in a position where somebody else has time to see the property and make an offer, and now we're competing with other folks when we could have just responded faster. That is a major complaint, by the way, among buyers with those agents that they're working with, is that they're tough to get in touch with. They're passing the buck to the buyer because they're saying, hey, I've created a search for you. So if you see something you like, you let me know and I'll go and show it to you. What's missing from that arrangement is the agent calling up the buyer and saying, hey, this is a really good one. It just hit the market 30 minutes ago. Can you take a lunch break and go and take a look at it? Right? Again, not to pressure somebody, but to respond quickly and give them the most opportunity possible. So not all the best deals are gone quickly, especially this time of year. The second myth is that you have to wait until spring to sell your house. And we get this all the time. Almost any conversation we have with a seller around this time of year, it comes up. Should I wait until the spring? And so, Charleston is a year-round market. Serious buyers shop every month of the year. Some sellers do better in the off-season when there's less competition. but the best time is when the timing is right for you, obviously, right? Because not because of a myth. But if you look at it, it has to be, in my mind, data-based. I'm a very data-based person, whether it's in real estate or in life. I want the facts. I want to interpret those facts, and I want to come to my own decision. And there's this not crazy, but there's this personality profile assessment that you can take for free. And I had not planned on going here with this show this morning, but just bear with me for a second. This might be very interesting for some of you. There's a personality profile assessment available for free. I know Tony Robbins used to offer it on his website. I'm not entirely sure where you can go and get it now, but it is called a DISC, D-I-S-C, personality profile assessment. And it will tell you kind of what type of person you are, a D, an I, an S, or a C. So a D is a driver. They're like, think typical CEO mentality, like just the facts, like I'm in a rush at all times. I don't want chitter chatter. I just want to make quick decisions. Then you've got the I, right? The chatty Cathys of the world, the people that hug strangers, the people that just win you over through personality. They're very emotional about everything. Or they operate off of a lot of emotion. Whereas you've got like an S, which stands for stabilizer, right? They are a little more on the timid side. They're a little shyer as an individual. They need a lot of reinforcement. They need time. They need to, in no way, shape, or form, feel pressured. And then you've got the C, right? That is the cautious person. That is the engineer mentality. That is, give me the facts. Don't misrepresent anything because I'm going to fact check it anyways. And let me come to my own decision through third-party information, right? So I am naturally an oxymoron of a person. I am what they call a CD, right? So almost two competing personality types. But really what that means, or how I interpret that, is that I take my time in making my decisions. I analyze and interpret data. I don't just go with the flow. I'm not the herd mentality person. I'm going to go and research things on my own. And then once I come to a decision and I've figured out a way and planned it out, it's go time, right? I'm very work ethic based as well. So for those of you that appreciate data, one thing I'll say really quickly is maybe go and do this personality profile assessment. It might help you learn a thing or two about yourself. But what would be even more interesting is if you and your spouse did it, or you and your kids did it, to see what kind of personality they are. And I promise you, it will help you in dealing with them, because once you understand the personality type of a person, it helps those conversations mature more naturally. That is the end of my very random sidebar, but hey, you never know. Maybe I helped somebody in a non-real estate related way this morning. But going back to, should you wait until spring to sell your home? In some instances, that might make sense. Again, it all has to do, in my opinion, with, is there demand in that market at that point in time, and what does the competition look like, right? When I'm looking at timing a market, I look at three things. What does the current competition look like, meaning what other properties are available for sale right now? Do we want to be competing with them or not? What has recently sold? Do we have any success stories that justify the goal we're trying to accomplish? And then what does the current market trend look like? I mean, if you're like in a downward spiral market, waiting never really makes sense, because the longer you wait, the more money you lose. We're in a market right now where things are kind of flat. So there's some affordability to, or reasoning behind waiting, if that's what you choose to do. But in my mind, it's all about what's happening in the market at that specific point in time, and where is that market headed? And how do we beat the competition to the finish line, right? That's really what we want, is we want a sale where we're not competing with a bunch of other people. We want somebody to fight over our listing. And so that's where timing, in my mind, comes into play. You know, if you guys have a myth that you want me to tackle on this show, give me a message. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love some more interaction just in terms of content for the show, quite honestly. So if you're open and bold and want to suggest a segment or something for me to cover on this show, call or text me. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. We're busting some myths this morning about the Charleston real estate market. And if you're just joining, we were just talking about whether, if you're a little late to the game, right? If you don't find a deal that hits the market as soon as it lists, are you out of luck? Or in other words, are all the best deals gone instantly? And so we talked a little bit about that, and then we talked about timing the market, which is something everybody always asks this time of year is, should I wait until spring to list my home? Does it make sense? Should I wait? Why should I not? When's a better time to list? And we talked about how we're very, data-based in that conversation, right? We want to analyze and interpret the market and look for opportunity so that we can really suggest the best time to list your house. There is one thing that I did want to mention before just getting into a few more of these myths. And, for those, because we hear this a lot from buyers, and we catch buyers at all different stages of the home search process. I like to think of the home search process in kind of 3 different phases, if you will. The first is the aspirational phase, meaning they know that they want to move at some point, right? They've kind of made the decision that, this is obviously not their forever home. Maybe that's next year. Maybe that's the year after. They're not quite sure on the timing, right? There's no deadline associated with their want or need to move. They're not entirely sure like where they would go or what they would buy. They just know they want to move, right? And so they start looking around. They start exploring some curiosities. They try and get an idea of what's realistic for them. Then they move into the research phase, which is, all right, well, we need to get serious about what we can afford, where we should be looking, what we really want in our new home. If we need to sell our home, what does that process look like? What's our house worth? How much equity do we have? All of that information needs to get gathered in the research phase so that you can plan accordingly. And that's where we come in a lot of the time. But then, of course, you move from the research phase to the transactional phase, meaning something hits the market, you're ready to jump on it. You're actively looking for opportunities, right? You are in the market. And so I think one thing that a lot of people miss out on is off-market opportunities. And like I was saying, we have a lot of folks that are looking around online. Maybe they've kind of done their own research and they think they know what they need to know. But through effective questioning and just a really good conversation with a real estate agent, you can learn a thing or 2 or 10 or 20. And that's really what we're here for. And that's frankly what this show is all about, is to educate and inform and entertain maybe a little bit along the way. But a lot of people will see these homes online, and by the time they click on it and they, anytime you go to Zillow as an example and you click on contact agent, you guys know that you're not talking to the listing agent, right? You're talking to some random agent that's paying for leads in that zip code or that has some sort of referral relationship with Zillow. But they don't know anything about the house. They're just getting leads because they're paying for them either up front or through a really fat percentage of their commission check on the back end. So not a lot of the time you're getting quick answers or answers that you need or want because they're specific to that property. And all those agents are looking for is opportunities to sell real estate, frankly. And so maybe you click on this house and by the time they get back to you, it's already under contract. That still happens in this market. We still have, basically 1 in 3 homes selling in a week or less for full price. I mean, there's still some very strong elements to our market. And so you'll have people that kind of feel like they're behind the 8 ball, right? Anytime they see something they like, there's already people that have seen it before them, and there's maybe already an offer in circulation, and they just feel like they can never get ahead. And so maybe what they're thinking is that, well, I need to work with somebody that can give me access to opportunities instantly. What I would say to that, or an issue that you might not even know you have, is that you don't have anybody in your corner that's looking for opportunities that don't exist publicly, off-market opportunities. And this is becoming a growing trend in not just our market, but nationwide, are the folks that will market their home internally to the agents within their brokerage or to all the people that agent is already in contact with, right? Like their database of buyer leads, to try and get some traction and get some momentum going in that listing before it actually hits the market, so that by the time it does list, you've already got a bunch of people that want to see it. And you've created urgency, or the illusion of urgency, among all the other buyers that are now seeing it for the first time. I mean, we talk about marketing. Marketing is designed to create urgency and fear of loss in real estate, right? That's what we want. We want a buyer to think that if I don't go and see this house and do something about it, make a decision on it, somebody else is going to. We're going to lose this. That's what you want. Now, finding an agent that knows how to position you that way is challenging in this market. I'd like to think that, among the agents that are out there, we do an exceptionally good job at that. I think that's frankly one of our differentiating factors. I won't shy away from that comment. We do an incredible job with marketing our properties. We've got a tried and true method that works exceptionally well for us. We've sold 1,500 homes. There's some backing there, but I think for the people that are out there in the market that are looking right now, they're totally missing out on off-market deals, because here's the other reality, right? An agent is not going to give you their list of off-market opportunities, because in many instances, they don't represent the seller. So they don't want to just give away the best leads they have without some sort of understanding and agreement that if you buy one of them, they're going to receive a commission. That's just the honest truth. So you might see agents out there like, click here to get our list of off-market opportunities, or like however they want to market that. The reality is they're not going to show you that unless you hire them as your agent. And so then the question is like, well, what agent is going to give me the best leg up on the competition? And that's something that maybe you've not even thought about when interviewing a buyer agent. If you even interview them in the first place, by the way, because most people don't. The overwhelming majority of buyers end up being represented by the first agent they come into what we call substantive contact with. It's been that way for ages and ages and ages. It's a convenience thing, right? Because a lot of real estate agents are viewed as the facilitator of a transaction. But let me tell you, when you get the right one, there is an incredible amount of time and real money that they can save you. And I'd like to think we do a really good job with that too. So let's get into one more quick myth here. And we've had a lot of these conversations recently too. And it's that if my home is in bad shape, right? If there's maintenance that I know needs to happen, I need a new roof, I've got wood rot, my HVAC is barely hanging on, I'm cosmetically just out of date, I need a full facelift, and I don't have the money to fix it up. So my only real option is to sell it to an investor. That is not true. I recently had a conversation with somebody, and this is slightly in the same ball field as this situation, but not entirely. But this is another situation, is this person needs to sell their house and they have a deadline, a real deadline where that home has to be sold by that date. If they don't, they lose a ton of money, right? And that's going to be in the form of a down payment on the house they're building. Because this builder has said they will not extend it because they've given this buyer, 9 months to facilitate the sale of their home. And if they don't sell it, there's some very steep financial consequences. So the seller can't afford to mess around. They've got to get it right. And we're talking about how to do that. And they said, hey, if I can't sell my home by such and such a date, I would agree for you to buy my home for X amount. And it's a very attractive offer for me personally. I could buy it, put it right back on the market, make a really good chunk of change. But they only said that because they thought those were the only two options that existed. There is a third option where there are companies that exist that will buy the house that you want to buy but need to sell your home first in order to afford. They'll just buy it for you. They'll pay cash. You get to look like a hero because to the seller of the house, you're basically a cash buyer. So this company buys this house for you, and then you rent it from this company. Whatever the fair market rent is per month, you just pay them per day. I mean, you're not paying them a check every day, but that's how it all works out. And there is a convenience fee for purchasing the home for you. But that allows you to sell your home without taking this massive haircut by selling it to an investor, because an investor is going to want 25, 30% off in order for all the numbers to work, at least. And if they can get more, even better, right? Those are the home run opportunities that investors love to hang their hat on, right? But there are options that exist. Just like if your home is in tough shape or you need some money to fix up your house, but you just don't have it, you're not forced into selling it at a loss. There are we just created a relationship that I'm super excited about where they will loan up to $50,000 to a homeowner. And the cost of that loan is basically 1% of the project amount per month. So if you're borrowing $50,000, you have to pay $500 a month in order to access that money. You make those repairs, you list your house, and then you pay back that $50,000 you borrowed at the end of the closing because it gets taken right out of your proceeds. And so there are massive amounts of people that can hugely benefit from something like this because, yeah, if your home is out of date and if it needs work, the buyer's going to want something in return for taking on those responsibilities. You know, nothing's for free in this market. So yes, you will likely have to sell at some version of a discount unless you have a truly magnificent property in a prime location where the upside makes sense for them to pay a little bit more on the front side, right? So if you're in this situation, if you're thinking about selling your house, maybe you have the budget for it, maybe you don't. But I'm telling you, one of the ways that you can save a lot of money is by working with a real estate agent that has contacts, that does stuff like this for them on a regular basis. Like I mentioned, I'm a real estate investor. I routinely flip properties. I have spent millions of dollars of my own money writing checks on repairs and renovations to properties. I know for the most part how much things cost or how much they should cost. And it always is like a knife to the heart when someone invites me over to their house after they've done all this work and then they tell me how much they spent on it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have saved you thousands or sometimes tens of thousands of dollars if we'd have just had this conversation a little bit sooner. So my suggestion for you, if you're thinking of selling, whether it's something as simple as staging and where to spend small amounts of money sprucing up your house, or if we're talking about something a little bigger, right? And you need some financial assistance, or if you've got the budget and want to make smart decisions in preparation of selling your home so you don't get taken to the cleaners when a buyer ultimately buys it, then please reach out to me. Let me help you with that. I can be reached at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And lastly, if you want, you can just send me an email. My email address is Brian, that's Brian with an I, at Brian Beatty, Beatty, team.com. So Brian at brianbeattyteam.com. I always like to take a moment and just tell you guys that I appreciate you for listening to this program. I really do. I appreciate those that reach out, whether it's just, hey, I have a question, or I need somebody to fix up my house, or I just need some help with something real estate related, housing related. Always welcome those calls. I'm here to be a resource for you guys. So if there's anything you guys ever need real estate related, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give me a buzz. And of course, I appreciate those of you that do have real estate needs, that are thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, or maybe you have a rental property that you'd like for us to manage for you. We have an incredible property management company that is extremely streamlined. And the whole goal in our property management company, just super quick, is to maximize your cash flow. Right? To maximize your return on your investment. So many property management companies slowly bleed you dry with all of these additional fees that they tack on. Whereas for us, we are very straightforward. We make money when we place a tenant, we make money when we collect rent, and we make money if that tenant renews their lease. Those are the only three ways we make money. We don't charge you to send out somebody to maintain your house for you. That's our job, right? That's where a lot of property management companies make their money, by the way. All right. So if you want to reach out in any way, shape, or form, if there's anything I can do to help you out, we love the opportunity to help. My direct line, which goes straight to me, I'll answer it, is 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk for just a little while, because we're going to have another show before the end of the year where I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen locally, right? But let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about some national forecasts and projections for next year and for the housing market. And I think there's some strong data, coming out of Redfin and the National Association of Realtors and Zillow and a few other major, economic researchers with regard to what they anticipate happening next year in the real estate market. And let me be clear, the majority of suggestions and projections and thoughts on next year's real estate market do not include a massive crash, despite what YouTubers will tell you, right? And look, I would love more views and engagement on my YouTube channel. I really would. But sometimes it's tough to compete. And this is why I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I love being available to people and sharing what I know. But it is sometimes challenging to compete with people that are getting all the views because they're projecting a 50% decrease in home values next year. I mean, it's like the typical, I think I've said this before, but it's like this guy with his look of horror on his face on the main picture of the video with a tidal wave behind him. And it's about to crash on this major city like some sort of Independence Day doomsday video. We're not in that situation. I mean, unless something really bad happens, I think next year is going to be just a kind of a stable real estate market. So with that being said, let's start with some price projections. That's what everybody wants to know is what's going to happen with home values, right? So if you look at Redfin as an example, they are projecting a home price growth of 1%, essentially flat. Zillow is saying a 1.2% home value growth. And let me just be really clear. These researchers, these predictions tend to change. This is what they're thinking as of right now, right? If you look at Zillow as an example, they were up and then down and then up again, and they've kind of been all over the board. But they're also saying that we should see about a little over a 4% increase in existing home sales. The National Association of Realtors is thinking that we're going to have a 2.2% home price appreciation, but with inflation-adjusted prices, we're basically going to fall slightly. In other words, very kind of flat market in terms of appreciation. The next most important thing that everybody wants to know is what's going to happen with mortgage rates. And so if you look at what the analysts expect right now, they're thinking that we will, for the first quarter, maybe second quarter, be around 6.3% as an average, with it coming down next year. Now, we've got a bunch of people that are saying we'll be in the high fives, mid to high fives, maybe, hopefully, by the end of next year. Others are saying we're probably just going to be in six. We're going to be in the six land next year. But I mean, we're not historically low, but a 6% interest rate is still fine. It's fine. It's a fine interest rate. It's not high. Yeah, it's high in comparison to what you might have now. But in the grand scheme of things, 6% is not a high interest rate, right? It'll, I think, be a little more stable next year. I think we'll be able to kind of think clearly through our decision-making because we're not anticipating some massive drop in interest rates or hoping for one. I think over time, people are just going to come to accept hey, the interest rates are going to be 6, maybe high 5s. And again, yes, you can manipulate the interest rate. You can negotiate with the seller to pay down to lower your interest rate. We do it all the time. Look at the builders out there. That's exactly what they're doing to turn inventory is they're manipulating their interest rate because they also own the mortgage companies, right? So what that really means, though, is when we look at prices and we look at mortgage rates is how does that impact affordability? Affordability is the key word that should be associated with, frankly, the last few years, especially this year, 2025. And so what they're expecting is that wage growth will actually outpace home price appreciation for the first time in years, which will help affordability, something we desperately need help in. Zillow, Redfin, they're both anticipating a quote-unquote modest affordability improvement. Nothing drastic, but maybe a little meaningful. The National Association of Realtors is essentially saying that, look, based on all the changes that they're seeing and anticipating, you're going to see your monthly mortgage payment lower by about 1.3% per year. So that is not breaking the bank or fixing the world's problems as it relates to the housing market anytime soon. I think that the inventory challenges are also still going to remain, which a lot of economists agree with, right? The rate lock effect that we've experienced for the past several years where people have a very low and extremely attractive payment because of their interest rate right now. and a ton of equity because they bought it several years ago and the market just shot through the roof. I mean, over the past 4 or 5 years, we're up like 60%. It's insane. But you will have life events, right? Relocations, marriages, divorces, new kids, retirements. We're just expected to see more movement, I think, in 2026. And builders are slowly increasing their output as well. I mean, particularly in the kind of entry level and build to rent product. So I think, altogether, 2026 is shaping up to just look like a fairly stable, predictable, balanced, normal real estate market with no, some slow but kind of positive movement is what I would say. And that stability is almost always going to create opportunity for long-term thinkers, right? So if you're thinking of planning your 2026 strategy, if you're thinking of moving, right, it's on the horizon, it's not here yet, but it's an inevitability, I'd love the opportunity to help you through that. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com, or send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Thanks for joining me this morning as we talk about the real estate market, what I see happening next year. We've busted some myths this morning. And I think that at the end of the day, next year the calm is the new cool, I think, is going to be the slogan for next year. I think that maybe it's a little unexpected because at the end of the day, here's the reality, folks. People love drama, right? If I could make next year's real estate market sound more dramatic, I guess I would. I'm not really one for that has a flair for the dramatics, but at the end of the day, I think it's just going to be a really balanced, normal market. And I know people crave drama, right? They want market crash stories or prices exploding overnight. But what we're experiencing is a balanced, steady, fairly predictable real estate market. And that might be one of the best things to happen in years. I mean, we have got you think back to 2008, we have had some pretty crazy and pretty high highs and low lows, right? There has been no absence of drama over the course of the past 15 or so years in our real estate market. So I would say just think of it like, calm water. It's not too exciting to watch, but it makes for some great sailing. Buyers have more breathing room. Sellers can make more thoughtful decisions. It also opens some doors for them with regard to not feeling so pressured to maybe remove some sort of home sale contingency or waive an appraisal or create some really strong over-the-top offer because they have to sell their home first. People finally have some time to do some planning. People have some time to approach a homeowner and say, hey, I want to buy your home, but I need to sell my home first. Will you give me some time to do that if the price is right and the deal works? And we can put some terms in there so that, let's say you do get another offer from someone that doesn't have to sell their home. Well, you can give me the opportunity to either take a back seat or just say, I'm going to buy it no matter what. But it opens up some doors. And I think investors too, they can run numbers without fear that the market is going to shift wildly next week. Right? Because a lot of the things that kill investors is when they get their projections wrong. Because in the world of real estate investing, you make your money when you buy a property, not necessarily when you sell it. You can control how much you pay for something. You cannot control how much it will ultimately sell for, what it's worth to the general public, right? You can manipulate it. You can try and entice a particular person to pay a certain price given their situation. But overall, the market's going to tell you what your property's worth. And you just don't have a ton of control over that. So I would say, as an example, I recently helped somebody purchase a home in Mount Pleasant that had been on the market for not too long, maybe about a month and a half. And it needed a little work. It needed some love. And we got an incredibly good deal on a house that, it needs some cosmetic updates, or it could use it doesn't need anything. It could use some cosmetic updates, but if, you redid the kitchen and the bathrooms in the house, you're going to make a few $100,000 in equity almost instantly. I mean, those are the kind of opportunities that people are seeing now. And those are the opportunities that sellers are willing to give to buyers, because not everything that hits the market is selling for more than what it's listed for. It's just not that market anymore. It's a normal market where the real estate agent that you choose makes, in my mind, a huge difference. Because remember what I was saying earlier in the show? For every 100 properties that hit the market, 27 of them don't sell. The agent gets fired because they're not doing a good job. The seller decides not to sell for whatever reason. Maybe their situation changes. Maybe they just realize they can't get what they want for it and take it off the market. Now, some of them go back on, some of them stay off, but 1 in 4 people are not having success when selling their homes. So when we ultimately represent those properties that have previously been on the market, and we kind of look at and analyze and kind of pick apart what was done versus what could have been done and what we do differently, sometimes those differences are massive. Sometimes they're very small. Sometimes it's just how that real estate agent is operating their business. There's a myriad of reasons why a home doesn't sell, but in this market, hiring the right real estate agent that can give you opportunity, that can position you to sell your home for not just the most money possible, but save money throughout the entire process, which could start from that first phone call to say like, hey, what are some things that I should do, if anything, to fix up my home? Where's the money best spent? What should I do? What should I not do? And how much can that cost? And can you save me money through the people that you already know to do that work for me? The answer is yes. If that's something I can help you guys with, if you're thinking about making a move next year, it's a great time when the market's not quite so busy to have those planning conversations, to start educating yourself on what you need to know and what you don't know that you should know in order to benefit you in the best way possible with buying or selling a home. Of course, we're also here to help you with your property management needs if we can do that. Give us a call. We'd love to help. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. Thanks for listening and have a great weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.